Before we start, I want to say that only 1% of you are subscribed. Please subscribe because when we reach 1,000 subscribers, I will post a special video for you. The hum of the spacecraft settled into a quiet purr as it docked at the Universal Council's Grand Station, orbiting a neutral planet at the edge of the Andromeda system. Thomas Blake, with his tousled brown hair and a gaze full of anticipation, stepped onto the platform where beings from various corners of the galaxy gathered. Beside him, Dr. Elliot Reed, an anthropologist and old college friend, adjusted his glasses, peering curiously at their extraordinary hosts. "Never thought we'd stand here, did you, Tom?" Elliot remarked, his voice a mix of awe and nervous excitement. Thomas chuckled. "Honestly, I was betting on retirement before encountering actual aliens. But here we are, representing Earth." Their conversation was briefly interrupted by a towering, crystalline creature that approached with a series of melodious chimes, which their translators promptly rendered into English. "Welcome to the Universal Council. I am Threxel." The being introduced itself, extending what seemed like a limb made of shimmering quartz. "We are honored to host such a unique species." Thomas reached out, his handshake firm yet cautious. "Thank you, Threxel. We come in peace and hope for mutual understanding." Elliot, always the observer, took a step forward, intrigued. "Your form is fascinating, Threxel. Silicon base, correct? We have theorized such life forms but never confirmed any till now." "Yes, Dr. Reed," Threxel responded, its voice a collage of harmonious tones. "Our composition allows us to thrive in environments that carbon-based life forms might find hostile." As they walked towards the main assembly hall, another delegate joined them. He was a smaller, insect-like creature with a carapace that glistened under the station's lights, introducing himself as Clix from the hive of Yaltrix. Clix clicked his mandibles together, a sign of Yaltrixian laughter. "I find it wonderful how diverse life can be. You humans are quite the enigma to many of us here." Thomas smiled, always ready to bridge gaps. "We find ourselves just as intrigued, Clix. There's so much we can learn from each other." Elliot, always keen to delve deeper, added, "It's not just our biological differences, but our cultural ones that can teach us the most. For instance, how does your hive society handle conflicts?" Clix tilted his head, antennae twitching thoughtfully. "Our conflicts are resolved through collective decision-making. Every voice is heard, from the youngest larvae to the oldest queen." Threxel chimed in, "And we Threxilians meditate on decisions until a harmonious resolution is crystal clear." It is a process of reflection and alignment. As they entered the Grand Assembly Hall, a vast dome lit by a constellation of bioluminescent fixtures, Thomas and Elliot marveled at the array of delegates. Each cluster of beings reflected a different evolutionary path, a different aesthetic of nature. Thomas turned to Elliot, his voice low and steady. "Ready to make history, Elliot?" Elliot adjusted his glasses once more, his usual pre-speech ritual. "As ready as I'll ever be. It's not every day you get to introduce humanity to the stars." They approached the podium, where Thomas was scheduled to speak. He looked out over the sea of alien faces, each one a story, a mystery, a potential friend or teacher. "Ladies, gentlemen, and beings of distinguished natures," Thomas began, his voice echoing slightly in the vast chamber. "We come from Earth, a planet rich in diversity and complexity. Today, we hope to share with you the essence of what it means to be human." The crowd listened, rapt, as Thomas continued, delving into human biology, culture, and hopes for the future. This was the beginning of a dialogue that might one day reshape the galaxy. And Earth, with all its ordinary and extraordinary facets, was now part of a much larger community. After Thomas's introductory speech, the assembly hall buzzed with chatter and a flurry of discussions. Elliot Reed leaned over to Thomas, his eyes gleaming with excitement. "That was a stellar presentation, Tom. I think you've got them curious, especially about our human quirks," Elliot whispered, referring to the subtle joke Thomas had made about humans' penchant for caffeine. Thomas nodded, observing the crowd. "Seems like it." I saw a few nods and those shimmering flutters from the crystalline block. "I hope that's a good sign." As they mingled among the delegates, a figure cloaked in a smooth metallic fabric approached them. He introduced himself with a low hum that their translators identified as laughter. "I am Zal from the planet Vertura. Your speech was most enlightening. I am particularly intrigued by your concept of art and music. How do these passions influence your species?" Zal inquired, his voice resonating with genuine curiosity. Thomas was thrilled to discuss this aspect. "Art and music are vital to us. They're not just hobbies, but ways we explore and express our deepest emotions. For example, through music, we can convey feelings that might not even have words. Elliot, always keen to share, pulled out a small device. Allow me to show you. He played a short piece of classical music, the soft strains of a violin filling the air around them. Zhao listened intently, his eyes, or what seemed to Sura's eyes, widening slightly. This is quite moving. The vibrations, they resonate similarly to our communication waves during meditation. The conversation was soon joined by another delegate, a humanoid named Lyra from the aquatic planet of Hydrones. She appeared fascinated by the interaction. Your human culture is rich indeed. On Hydrones, we use water currents to create what you might call art. It's all very flowing and transient. Thomas exchanged a look with Elliot, both appreciating the diversity of concepts. That sounds beautiful, Lyra. It's amazing how water is so central to your life and culture. On Earth, we have artists who work with ice or water, but it sounds quite different from your practices. As the group discussed further, Thomas noticed an ongoing theme. Every civilization had its unique approach to art, but all shared the underlying intent to communicate and preserve something precious. Elliot, feeling inspired, suggested, "Why don't we organize a cultural exchange? We could present various human artworks and perhaps experience some of your cultural works as well." Zhao and Lyra agreed enthusiastically. "An excellent idea," Zhao hummed. "Vertura will present our light sculptures. They are ephemeral, yet their impact is lasting. And Hydrones will bring water symphonies," Lyra added, her voice melodious and fluid. "It's a performance where we manipulate water flows to produce sounds and visual patterns." As they parted ways to prepare for the cultural exchange, Thomas felt a profound sense of anticipation and delight. Not only were they learning about alien cultures, but they were also about to share a piece of human soul and creativity. Back at their quarters, Thomas and Elliot discussed the upcoming events. "We need to bring something spectacular, Elliot. Something that truly represents the breadth of human creativity," Thomas mused, looking through their collection of digital art and music archives. Elliot nodded, tapping at his device. "I think I have just the thing. Let's combine visual arts with music, perhaps a fusion of classic and modern, something that illustrates our journey through time." As they set their plans in motion, both men felt a surge of pride and responsibility. This wasn't just about showcasing Earth. It was about forging connections in a vast, unknown universe where every conversation, every shared piece of art, was a step toward understanding and unity. The day of the cultural exchange arrived, buzzing with anticipation. Thomas and Elliot were busy setting up their exhibit, an immersive display featuring a blend of Earth's classical and contemporary artworks alongside a carefully curated playlist of music. As they adjusted the lighting to better highlight a holographic projection of Van Gogh's Starry Night, another delegate approached them. This was Zahn, a representative from the mechanical world of Gearnox. His body was an intricate mesh of moving parts, and he conveyed curiosity through the rhythmic clicking of his gears. "Fascinating choice of art," Zahn observed, his optical sensors focusing on the swirling stars of the projection. "On Gearnox, we use metal and light to express similar chaotic beauty." Thomas turned to greet him, pleased with the interest. "Thanks, Zahn. It's one of our most beloved pieces. Shows the turmoil and tranquility in our human emotions. What kind of expressions do you use in your artworks?" Zahn's gears whirred softly as he explained. "We create kinetic sculptures that move in sync with our planet's magnetic fields. It's both an art and a form of meditation for us." Elliot, intrigued, noted down the idea. "We'd love to see that sometime. Art that interacts with nature on such a level must be quite the experience." As they spoke, more delegates wandered into their exhibit. Zhao returned, accompanied by a new figure, a tall, slender being with a translucent skin that shimmered with a soft internal light. This was Loom from the photonic planet Lux, who greeted them with a series of harmonious tones. "I was told Earthlings have a rich sense of aesthetics," Loom conveyed through the translator. "Your use of colors and forms is deeply evocative." Elliot, always ready with the technical details, began to explain the technology behind holography and how it enhanced the sensory experience of the artworks. By projecting these classics in 3 dimensions, we try to bring them to life, to make them more relatable to species who might not perceive art as we do. Loom flickered brightly, a sign of pleasure. "It is indeed effective. On Lux, we use light to sculpt our stories into existence. Perhaps we can exchange techniques?" "Absolutely," Thomas agreed enthusiastically. There's so much we could learn from each other's methods. As the morning progressed, their booth became a hub of lively discussion and exchange of ideas. Representatives from different cultures share their own approaches to art, ranging from the sculptural sounds of hydronies to the ephemeral light sculptures of Vertura. Amid the cultural showcase, Clix from Yaltrix approached with his delegation. "Human friends, your display is quite the draw. I must admit, understanding your emotions through art is quite enlightening." Thomas smiled, handing Clix a small, printed replica of a famous human painting. "We believe art isn't just to be viewed, it's to be felt. It's our history, our emotions, all wrapped into one." Clix examined the painting with his compound eyes. "In Yaltrix, we exchange ideas through scent. It would be intriguing to see if we could represent this painting as a scent that conveys the same emotion." Elliot laughed, delighted by the concept. "Now, that's an innovative approach. We'll have to try that before the conference ends." The day unfolded with the delegates participating actively, sharing their cultures and learning from each other. As the event wound down, Thomas and Elliot felt a profound satisfaction in having not only shared a piece of humanity, but also in having woven a tapestry of interstellar cultural understanding. Their final task of the day was to gather feedback and reflections from the participants, documenting these exchanges in hopes of continuing this newfound collaboration long after they returned to Earth. "Today was just the beginning, Elliot," Thomas reflected as they packed up their exhibit. "Who knows what doors we've opened? Whatever comes next, it's bound to be fascinating." Elliot agreed, looking forward to the future with optimism and an open mind, ready for whatever the universe had to offer. In the days following the cultural exchange, Thomas and Elliot received numerous invitations from various delegates eager to delve deeper into the nuances of human culture. Among them, Saran, the scholarly alien from a distant galaxy, expressed a keen interest in understanding more about human emotions and relationships, specifically the concept of intimacy that seemed to be woven into much of Earth's art. "Thomas, Elliot, your art exhibit was profoundly moving," Saran began as they gathered in a quiet corner of the conference center. "The emotional depth conveyed through your artworks and music, how does this relate to your personal connections and expressions of intimacy?" Thomas exchanged a glance with Elliot, who nodded for him to lead. Clearing his throat, Thomas started. "Human intimacy is quite complex. It's not just about physical closeness, but also about emotional bonds. For instance, simple acts like sharing a meal or walking together can deepen a connection." Elliot chimed in. "And there's more overt affection like hugging, holding hands, or kissing. These are all ways we express care and build trust among each other." Saran's luminescent eyes widened in curiosity. "Kissing? I am not familiar with this form. Could you elaborate?" Thomas, ever the educator, explained. "It's a gesture where two people touch lips as a sign of affection or greeting. It's considered a very personal form of connection among humans." "Fascinating," Saran mused. "And does it often lead to deeper relationships?" "Yes, typically," Elliot added. "It's often the beginning of a romantic relationship, which can include a range of other intimate interactions and mutual support." Saran seemed to ponder this. "On my world, connections are formed through shared knowledge and mutual enhancement of understanding. We do not have physical expressions of affection. It is all very cerebral." Thomas smiled, finding the concept intriguing. "The diversity of connection is what makes this council so valuable. Sharing these ideas opens up new ways of seeing our own practices." Eager to explore this further, Saran proposed an idea. "Would it be possible to simulate a human-style interaction? I am curious to experience this aspect of your culture under controlled conditions, of course, to better understand its emotional impact." Both Thomas and Elliot were taken aback but intrigued by the request. After a moment of consideration, Thomas agreed. "We could arrange a simple demonstration with volunteers from our delegation. It would be purely educational." The following day, they set up a small, private booth with the consent of their human colleagues who agreed to demonstrate simple gestures of affection like hand-holding and a cheek kiss. Saran observed, accompanied by Thomas and Elliot, who provided commentary on the emotions and traditional context behind each gesture. As the demonstration concluded, Saran was visibly moved, even if in an alien manner. "I now see that there is a profound layer of emotional resonance in such interactions. It's quite different from anything in my experience." Thomas nodded, pleased with the outcome. "It's all about the emotional context, Saran. Each act of intimacy is a building block in the architecture of a human relationship." Elliot, taking notes on the encounter, added, "It's these experiences that help us all grow." Perhaps there's something from your culture, Saran, that you'd like to share with us? A practice that fosters connection in a non-physical way? Saran agreed, enthusiastic about the exchange. I will be honored. We use a form of shared meditation to sync our intellectual frequencies. It's quite intimate for us. Perhaps you would like to participate? Thomas and Elliot readily accepted, looking forward to understanding Saran's culture as deeply as he sought to understand theirs. This reciprocal exchange promised new insights into the vast spectrum of connections that the universe housed, each unique and profound in its own right. The shared meditation session with Saran was set up in a tranquil part of the conference center, designed to mimic the serene environments of Saran's homeworld. Thomas and Elliot, both curious and a bit apprehensive about what the experience might entail, were guided into the softly lit room by Saran, who seemed more animated than usual. As we begin, I ask you to clear your minds and open yourselves to the flow of knowledge and emotion, Saran instructed, his voice soothing. This process connects our intellects through a network of thought waves. Thomas and Elliot nodded, following Saran's lead as they sat cross-legged on the cushioned floor. Saran initiated the meditation with a series of deep, resonant tones that vibrated through the room. Thomas felt the sound in his chest, a strange but calming sensation. After several minutes, Thomas noticed his thoughts seemed to echo in the space between them, a surreal experience of mental and emotional exchange. He could sense Elliot's initial skepticism, which slowly melted into a sort of astonished acceptance. "How are you feeling, Thomas?" Saran's voice echoed in his mind, not through his ears, a startling experience. "It's incredible," Thomas communicated back, marveling at the clarity and depth of this form of connection. "It's like I can understand your thoughts directly, without words." Elliot, still a bit overwhelmed, added, "It's a lot more intense than I anticipated. It's as if the boundaries between where my thoughts end and yours begin are blurred." Saran's mental voice was warm. "This is how we build understanding and empathy in my culture. By truly experiencing each other's thoughts, we form bonds that are profoundly informative." As the session progressed, Thomas found himself not only understanding Saran's ideas, but feeling a connection that went beyond intellectual curiosity. There was an emotional resonance that he hadn't expected, a sense of kinship and mutual respect that deepened as they shared thoughts and memories. When the meditation ended, they all opened their eyes slowly, needing a moment to adjust back to normal sensory inputs. They shared a look, each of them visibly moved by the experience. "That was unlike anything I've ever experienced," Thomas said, his voice a mix of awe and gratitude. "Saran, thank you for sharing that with us." Elliot nodded in agreement, his analytical mind racing with the implications. "I can see how such practices could really foster deep understanding between different peoples. It cuts right through misunderstandings." Saran seemed pleased with their reactions. "I'm glad to hear it was enlightening for you. It is often said in my culture that to truly know someone, you must share a part of your soul with them." The conversation shifted as they began to discuss potential applications of such technology and cultural practices in fostering galactic diplomacy. Thomas proposed a joint research project to explore integrating Saran's meditative practices with human diplomatic training programs. As they planned, Thomas noticed a shift in his feelings. The intellectual exercise had become something more personal for him, a genuine desire to bridge the gap between their species on a deeper level. He felt a bond with Saran that went beyond professional respect, one that was perhaps the beginning of a true friendship. Elliot, ever observant, caught the subtle change in Thomas's demeanor. "I think this could be the start of something big, Tom. Not just for us, but for all of humanity." Thomas agreed, his thoughts still intertwined with echoes of Saran's. "Absolutely, Elliot. Today, we didn't just share thoughts, we saw the potential for real empathy between species. It's a small step towards understanding each other on a level we never thought possible." As they left the meditation room, the implications of their newfound connection were not lost on them. This experience had opened a pathway not just for diplomatic relations, but for forging emotional ties that could one day hold together a coalition of diverse beings across the universe. After the meditation session, the relationship between Thomas, Elliot, and Saran entered a new phase of collaboration and mutual understanding. In the following days, they spent hours together, discussing potential integrations of their cultural practices and planning future research projects. However, for Thomas, these interactions began to stir deeper, more complex emotions. One evening, as the conference center's artificial sun dipped below the horizon, Thomas and Saran found themselves walking along the viewing platform that overlooked the galaxy, a panorama of stars and swirling nebulae spreading out before them. Saran, the meditation session we had. It's left a lasting impression on me, Thomas began, watching a distant star flicker. I've been thinking a lot about our discussions on emotional connectivity. Saran turned to face him, his luminescent eyes reflecting the starlight. Yes, Thomas. It was a profound experience for me as well. I sensed during our connection that it affected you deeply. Would you care to share your thoughts? Thomas paused, choosing his words carefully. It's unusual for humans to form connections as quickly as we did. But during our session, I felt a bond that went beyond professional respect or friendship. It's something more. Saran nodded slowly, his voice calm. I understand. My people also value deep connections, though it's rare for us to form them outside our species. Your feelings are a significant discovery for both of us. At that moment, Elliot joined them, sensing the serious tone of their conversation. Everything all right here? He asked, looking between the two. Thomas smiled faintly, grateful for Elliot's ever-present support. We were just discussing the emotional impact of our last session. It's brought up some feelings that I'm trying to understand. Elliot's interest piqued, he suggested. Why don't we all sit down for a moment? It sounds like this is something important we need to address together. They found a bench nearby, the cosmic view before them a stark backdrop to their conversation. Thomas continued, I think these feelings could be essential in understanding the potential of our collaborations. If our goal is to promote empathy and understanding between species, then acknowledging these emotions is a crucial part of the process. Saran agreed, his tone reflective. Absolutely, Thomas. The feelings you describe are important. They signify a true empathetic connection, something that could guide our efforts in bridging interspecies relationships. Elliot, always the scientist, added, It's fascinating, really. We talk about diplomacy and mutual understanding, but here we are, experiencing firsthand how deep these connections can go. It's a testament to what we're trying to achieve. As the conversation deepened, the trio discussed how to formalize their experiences into a framework that could be used by others. They considered developing programs that would use controlled emotional bonding exercises, similar to their meditation, to foster understanding and cooperation between different species. Thomas felt a sense of purpose as they outlined the possibilities. This could be the foundation of a new kind of diplomacy, one that doesn't just negotiate treaties but builds real, emotional bonds. Saran was optimistic. With your permission, I would like to document our experiences and propose this as a pilot program to the Council. If we can demonstrate the benefits, it might become a standard practice in intergalactic relations. Elliot, ever the enthusiast for documentation, agreed enthusiastically. Let's do it. We'll need to be meticulous in detailing our processes and outcomes, but I think we have something truly groundbreaking here. As they rose from the bench, the weight of their potential discovery lingered in the air. They had not only uncovered new personal emotions, but perhaps a new way forward for all species, a way built on profound understanding and genuine emotional connection. As the trio worked to formalize their new approach to intergalactic diplomacy, they prepared for a full presentation at the Universal Council. It was during one of these preparations that the delegates became most curious about the human concept of intimacy, a topic which had sparked intrigue from the start. In a large meeting room filled with delegates from various systems, Thomas and Elliot were setting up for a mock session to demonstrate their emotional bonding techniques. The room buzzed with a mix of anticipation and skepticism. Just as Thomas was about to begin, a delegate from the back, a Rylonian known for his sharp critical thinking, raised a question that halted the proceedings. Excuse me, Mr. Blake, he called out, his voice carrying across the silent room. During your initial presentation, you mentioned something about human reproduction. Can you elaborate on that? Specifically, how often do you engage in this intimate practice? The question, though blunt, was not unexpected. Thomas cleared his throat, glanced at Elliot, who nodded supportively, and addressed the gathering. Certainly. Human reproduction, while a biological process, is deeply intertwined with our emotional lives. For many humans, engaging in intimacy is an expression of love and trust. It's not just about reproduction, but about connecting deeply with another person. Elliot stepped forward to add, it's a fundamental part of our emotional makeup. This form of intimacy, kissing, touching, sharing personal space, it's all part of how we express care and affection. A murmur ran through the crowd. An aviolix delegate, feathered and bright-eyed, asked, and is this practice common among all humans? How is it viewed in terms of frequency? Thomas responded, It varies widely. Some humans choose to engage in these activities often, while others may not. Like many aspects of human culture, it's deeply personal and can be influenced by individual beliefs, values, or life stages. Saran, who had been listening intently, joined the conversation. I believe understanding these personal aspects can enhance our appreciation of human diplomacy. Just as we value the sharing of knowledge, humans value the sharing of emotion. Another delegate from the silicon-based life forms questioned further. Could this form of emotional sharing be dangerous? How do you ensure it remains a positive experience? Elliot took this one. Consent and communication are key. It's about mutual respect and understanding. These principles could be beneficial in our diplomatic efforts too. Emphasizing mutual consent and clear communication, Thomas saw the interest and curiosity growing among the delegates. He proposed, if you're all open to it, we could arrange a seminar to discuss human emotional expressions more thoroughly, perhaps even demonstrate some non-intimate, basic interactions like handshakes or hugs. The suggestion was met with nods and notes of agreement. As the session wrapped up, several delegates approached Thomas, Elliot, and Saran, expressing a desire to participate in the seminar. They discussed the arrangements, and plans were set for a deeper exploration of human emotional practices. As they left the room, Thomas felt a sense of achievement. It seems we've tapped into something universal here, Elliot. Maybe understanding isn't so far out of reach. Elliot grinned, clapping Thomas on the back. Looks like it. Human or not, everyone wants to connect, to feel understood. The day closed with the trio reflecting on the progress they had made, not only in advancing their project but in bridging gaps between vastly different cultures. They were pioneers, setting the groundwork for a new era of empathy and understanding across the stars. The seminar on human emotional expressions had been a resounding success. As the Universal Council's conference drew to a close, Thomas, Elliot, and Saran convened in the now familiar quiet corner of the conference center to reflect on the outcomes and plan their next steps. Thomas began, his tone thoughtful. The level of engagement we've seen has been incredible. It seems that our approach, combining the personal with the diplomatic, really resonated with many of the delegates. Elliot nodded, his mind already racing ahead. It's been an eye-opener for sure. We need to think about how we can continue this dialogue. Perhaps a series of intercultural workshops? Saran, who had become not just a colleague but a close friend, added, I believe we have started something that could grow beyond this conference. The concept of emotional exchange could revolutionize diplomatic relations across galaxies. The trio discussed the logistics of setting up a series of workshops that would take place both on Earth and at various locations across the galaxy. They envisioned sessions that would not only cover human practices, but also allow other species to share their unique methods of emotional and cultural expression. As they talked, a delegate named Grix from a newly participating civilization approached them. Excuse me, Grix began. I wanted to express my gratitude. Your seminar opened up new possibilities for us in understanding the complexities of emotional expressions. Thomas smiled warmly. Thank you, Grix. We're glad it was helpful. Are there practices from your culture that you think could be shared in these workshops? Grix, a tall, slender being with a gentle demeanor, replied, Indeed, we use color changes in our skin to express emotions. It's something we'd love to share. We can communicate how we feel without words, which might be intriguing for others to learn. Elliot was visibly excited by the prospect. That would be a fascinating addition to our workshops. Visual communication is something we've touched on, but your method sounds unique. As the group continued their planning, Thomas proposed a new idea. What if we create a common digital platform? A place where all civilizations can continuously share and learn from each other about cultural and emotional expressions. It could serve as a living library of intergalactic diplomacy. Saran responded enthusiastically. A splendid idea, Thomas. Such a platform could serve not just as a tool for education, but as a bridge between cultures, enhancing understanding on a continuous basis. The final day of the conference arrived, and the trio presented their plans for the future workshops and the digital platform to the full assembly of the Universal Council. The proposal was met with unanimous approval, and excitement filled the room as delegates from various worlds began to discuss how they could contribute. After the presentation, as they packed up their materials, Elliot looked over at Thomas and Saran. When we first came here, I never imagined we'd be at the forefront of creating a new way to bridge galaxies. Thomas laughed, clapping Elliot on the back. Nor did I, Elliot. It's been an incredible journey. But the real work starts now. making sure this isn't just an idea that fades away. Saran added, "With such a strong foundation of friendship and understanding among us, I have every confidence we will succeed." The story concludes with Thomas, Elliot, and Saran watching the stars from the viewing platform one last time. They shared a quiet moment, reflecting on the deep connections they had forged, not just among themselves but across cultures and species. The future was uncertain, but it was filled with potential for new understanding and enduring peace, bound together by the universal language of emotion.